Zehen has hit the Rift and is looking like one of the most powerful release champs we've seen in a while. Of all the off-meta junglers who were buffed this patch, it's actually Aatrox who's been finding the most success. And then our pre-patch prediction of Misfortune becoming an OP ADC has played out as she's dominating with her buff. So we've got so much to update for you guys in today's video as we bring you up to speed with all the new meta trends and a complete look at the solo queue tier list for every single role. But first, some hard truths. YouTube is built for the algorithm, not your LP. That means clickbait titles, junk food topics, and stretching simple tips for watch time. We're part of that system too, just like every guide and YouTube channel. And because every video is randomly surfaced to you as a singular guide and topic, advice often contradicts what you just watched. No context, no plan, more confusion. On our website at SkillCapped, however, we're free from all of that, allowing us to focus on what actually matters. We teach in the most efficient way to really rank you up fast, with the same premium editing and challenger level coaches you see here, just without the algorithm's hoops. Start with our essentials courses for every role, updated for season 15. These are meticulously planned step-by-step guides that build your fundamentals in the right order. Once you finish essentials, move into the advanced courses. Deep dive wave control, advanced mechanics, the proven bronze to diamond climb paths, and literal world record jungle clears for each jungler, all structured so lessons stack instead of contradict. While you follow these learning paths, we also release our popular challenger walkthroughs, new sessions every week showing how to abuse the best meta champs for your elo. Supported with an AMA section below each video, which we always respond to. We back it with a climb 5 divisions improvement guarantee while you're actively using SkillCapped, plus a 30-day refund change of mind policy on top of that, so there's literally no risk. Stop trying to mix and match random guides and start following a structured path far away from all the noise. Click the limited time discount link below to join SkillCapped today. So League's newest champion, Zehen, is now on live servers, and it's safe to say he's a bit on the powerful side so far. Usually when new champs are released, they start off the patch with win rates below 45%, but Zehen is already up above 50% shortly after release. So because of this, Riot has decided to go ahead and issue a few hotfix nerfs to bring that power level down a notch. Passive bonus AD has been lowered from 1.5 scaling to 3.3% to 1.5 scaling to 2.8%. QAD ratio is down from 30 scaling to 70% to 20 scaling to 60%, and Q2 base damage takes a dip going from 30 scaling to 150 to 25 scaling to 125. So with the nerf on live servers for about 1 day as of the recording of this video, it's not looking like it's affecting Zehen's power much at all. As we mentioned, a 50% win rate on release is pretty absurd for a new champ, so even with these nerfs going through, it's not much of a surprise if Zehen remains in an overly powerful spot. In terms of matchups for Zehen right now, what we're seeing is that he's only struggling more significantly against ranged picks like Teemo, Vayne, and Kennen. Champs who have abilities that prevent you from stacking your passive as fast as you'd like are also playing quite well into Zehen, as Malphite and Jax are two matchups that the majority of Zehen players are struggling against. So because you just don't see ranged tops picked that often, it's probably best just to use your ban on Malphite right now, because he is extremely popular and his attack speed slow along with his lockdown from R will make it more difficult for you to get your passive stacks quickly in fights. In regards to the build for Zehen, it's either going to be a Trinity Force or Stride Breaker Rush. Trinity is best in most games, but Stride works well if you are against a top laner with a lot of mobility or range, to where the slow from Stride can really help you stick onto them. Sundered Sky is working great as a second purchase, and then you can choose between Death's Dance and Steric's third. Death's Dance will be better into heavier AD comps, while Steric's is more optimal into magic damage. And then as you get later into the game, Guardian Angel is pretty gross on Zehen because you allow yourself to have 2 revives in a late game fight, which just stalls so much time for your team. For Zehen's rune page, Conqueror does look to be the most consistent. However, there is one rune in the precision tree that you should look to swap from the recommended. Majority of Zehen's are taking coup de grace, but Last Stand is heavily outperforming. This makes sense because when you're diving into fights with Zehen and because of his passive, you're going to be fighting on low health thresholds a lot of the time, so the value from Last Stand is really good for him. So in regards to Zehen's tier list placement, he's going to be slotting into the OP tier as one of the best top laners of the patch. So because Riot went really light on the top lane changes for this patch, it's just Zehen joining the list as the major adjustment. Malphite continues to overperform and gets even better this patch because he's one of the few champs who's actually seeing pretty good results when playing into Zehen. So if you don't want to use your ban on Zehen for this patch, then pulling out Malphite as an answer is a great strategy. Mundo is one top lane champ who has seen a small boost in power for this patch as his adjustments have landed power positive. Riot ended up giving him more scaling damage on E in exchange for a bug fix nerf, and his win rate has gone up just over 1%. So we're going to be moving Mundo up 1 tier for mid patch, going from B into A tier. There really isn't much else noteworthy to go over for top lane, so let's head into jungle where the bulk of the changes were for this patch. So the one jungler who we really had no clue as to how he'd perform going into the patch due to him never being played as a jungler in the past has ended up the most powerful off-meta jungler who was buffed, as Aatrox is performing quite well. He's not on any egregious level right now as his win rate is just shy of 50%, but with optimization and players maximizing his clear, we wouldn't be surprised to see his win rate shoot up above 50% for next patch. All the AoE damage coming from Aatrox's Q just allows him to clear extremely fast, and if you guys watched our pre-patch tier list, then you would have seen it's literally a 200 damage boost with a passive proc into all 3 Qs from last patch to now. The build working the best is a little different from what you see in top lane, as a Voltaic Cyclist Sword Rush is the most popular and outperforming everything else. Voltaic with Sundered Sky and Spear of Shojin is the 3-item core that you should be playing. And then for the rune page, it does look like there's some optimization that can be done, as Alacrity is winning way more than Haste. However, most Aatrox jungle players are taking Haste. It's not even close either, as Alacrity is winning 3% more than Haste. Of course, it's going to be Conqueror for the Keystone, and then you'll go Inspiration for secondaries. And then in regards to Aatrox tier list placement, he's going to be the highest rated off-meta jungler who was buffed for this patch, slotting into the A tier. Malphite is the one other jungler who's performing quite well relative to all other off-meta junglers who are buffed, as he's sitting right around a 48% win rate. The thing with Malphite jungle right now, though, is that it's not really clear what the most optimal rune setup is for him. Tank is definitely the most consistent build, as Sunfire Rush is winning 5% more than Malignance, but for the Keystone, you have a couple of options. Dark Harvest is the most popular, but if you're playing the optimal tank Malphite, then you wouldn't want to run it. Press the Attack is looking like the most consistent Keystone to run for tank Malphite, but Grasp and Phase Rush are performing pretty good too. PTA makes sense because it is quite easy for Malphite to proc due to his auto attack reset on W, and since you're maxing out your W first on jungle Malphite, your auto attacks will be hurting more, and the damage boost from PTA will be nice to have for those extended skirmishes. It's W first into Q second and E last that is winning the most for Malphite's ability maxing. So ranking Malphite jungle on the tier list is a bit tricky because his power level drastically shifts depending on the elo he's played in. If you're gold or below right now, then we would highly recommend picking up Malphite jungle, but if you're plat or above, and especially diamond or above, that's where Mal jungle really falls off. If we were rating based on high elo, Malphite would be in C tier, and if it were only based on low elo, he would be A tier. So for his overall tier list placement, we're going to meet in the middle and give him a B tier rating. Alright, so other than Aatrox and Malphite, the 6 other off-meta junglers who saw buffs for this patch aren't finding nearly as much success. Sion, Cho'Gath, and Mbessa are the closest to being viable, but in terms of Jace, Riven, Fizz, and Ornn, they are performing terribly, so we won't be adding them to the jungle tier list. Fizz is by far the worst right now, sitting at a 42% win rate, so for the sake of your elo and your teammates' elo as well, let's keep the Fizz jungle out of the ranked queues. Mundo jungle is definitely a pick worth looking into for 25.23, as his buff has helped him out quite a bit, and he's just shy of moving into an S tier spot. For the OP tier, nothing's going to be changing there, as Jax, Diana, and Kha'Zix continue to overperform relative to all other junglers. If we had to crown one champion in the game who's the most criminally underrated right now for solo queue, it would have to be Swain mid. Swain was buffed this patch with his E damage going up and E mana cost going down, so it's made his laning phase a bit stronger. It's only led to around a 1% spike in win rate, but the thing about Swain mid is that he's actually been a really consistent performer in recent patches, and if he was just picked more, then he probably wouldn't have even been buffed in the first place. Swain plays really well into the majority of melee mids, because for Swain to succeed the most, he wants champions to dive in on him, and of course melee champs will have to do that. Swain's skill floor is pretty low too, which makes him a really accessible champion, as you can pick him up and find success relatively quickly. So Swain is up in the mid lane S tier as one of the best solo queue mids of the patch. It was just Swain and Ahri who were buffed for mid lane in 25.23, and both champs are really strong right now. We weren't exactly sure how much power the Ahri buff would give her, so we didn't move her up the tier list during pre-patch, but the buff has landed pretty impactful, so we're gonna slot her into OP. Hwei nerfs have ended up hitting a substantial amount, as he's no longer performing as one of the top tier mages. QE is just such a bread and butter spell for the champ to use not only during fights, but for wave clear as well. So with the ability nerfed, it's led to his win rate dropping just under 1.5%. And then it didn't take a rocket scientist to tell that the Vlad nerfs would do absolutely nothing to shift his overall power level, as the nerfs dropped his win rate by around 0.5%, so he's still locking down an S tier spot. As for the Mel adjustments, we haven't seen her gain or lose power at all, as she's remained power neutral, so Mel will continue to be placed in the mid lane B tier. We were correct in our prediction that Fizz would end up losing power in mid lane due to his R cooldown going up, as the base armor buff was not enough to compensate. That being said, it was a pretty minor nerf with Fizz win rate only going down about 0.5%, so he's still a good A tier pick. The ADC meta was put in an absolute blender for 25.23, as there's been a huge shift in priority for the role. Our pre-patch prediction of Misfortune becoming an OP tier ADC has played out nicely, as she's dominating in both win rate and play rate this patch. As we noted in the pre-patch tier list as well, it wasn't just MF's direct buff that is helping her out, as she can take first strike for her keystone and then grab cash back with triple tonic to take advantage of those rune buffs from last patch. So a great patch if you're an ADC main looking to make that push out of low elo for end of season, as Misfortune should be your go-to pick for the time being. An ADC who slightly exceeded our expectations as to where they would land power-wise due to their 25.23 buffs is Jhin. So Jhin saw his base AD increased, W damage increased, and his passive movement speed increased, which has resulted in his win rate jumping up almost 1.5%. When you take into account that picks like Ashe, Jinx, Kai'Sa, and Caitlyn were all nerfed for this patch too, that 1.5% spike for Jhin is even more significant. His relative power level is up a ton for 25.23, and his play rate has jumped up a bunch as well, so it's pretty clear that Jhin is back to being one of the highest priority ADCs as we're sliding him up into the S tier. Tracking Zeri in 25.23 is a bit strange because even though she was buffed, her win rate didn't go up at all. Riot gave Zeri more movement speed per stack when she pops her R, but for some reason the buff isn't translating into any additional success for the champ in solo queue. So this is one of the changes we ended up being wrong about, and we'll be moving Zeri back down the tier list for mid patch, moving her from S into A. So this is one of the more refreshing patches that we have had for ADC in quite some time, as there has actually been a significant meta shift. Ashe and Jinx are now out as the most dominant ADCs, and even though they're still good S tier options, there is so much more variety to choose from. MF is definitely the ADC who's performing cut above all else right now, so her tier list placement is reflected by that, with her being the standalone ADC up in the OP tier. Tristana is really good after her buff. Jhin is in a great spot, Smolder is exceptionally strong, and Vayne is really underrated, so there are a handful of extremely powerful ADCs to choose from in 25.23. With that being said, there are definitely a good chunk of ADCs underperforming now, with Caitlyn being a pretty mediocre champ due to her nerf. Kai'Sa isn't really worth playing over many other ADCs with her nerf coming through, and then you've got Yunara, Kalista, and Varus, who are just really weak relative to all other picks. So with how eventful of a patch it was for ADC, its role played in tandem was left with a very bare patch, as there's little new to report for support in 25.23. To be fair though, the support role is in a pretty balanced spot right now in terms of there being a lot of variety and powerful spots. Mages like Brand and Vel'Koz are performing really well right now. We've got Amumu, Maokai, Leona, Thresh, Braum, and Blitz, all in great spots for melee supports. And then there's a wide range of enchanters that are really powerful right now, with Melio and Nami leading the charge in the OP tier, while Soraka, Seraphine, Karma, Sona, and Janna are all great options too. Swain, Mel, and Hui were the only champions played in the support role who saw changes for this patch, and as we expected, the changes they received did absolutely nothing to help boost their relative power levels in the role. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit skillcapped.com and see the difference. So there you have it everyone, this has definitely been one of the more fun patches that we've had all season, with the off meta jungle changes and then a big shakeup to the ADC meta as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you back soon.